All right, everybody, welcome back to the Horn Takes podcast, your Texas sports talk destination. I am your host, Sean Redfern. It is hot as a mug in Texas. It's hot AF, as the kids say. So we're in our mom's basement. A lot of people, when I first started, if y'all been following me for a while, watching this show for a while, y'all have probably uh, seen people on TikTok make disparaging comments about me being in a basement. It's not my mom's basement, but I'll play the joke. I'll play the game and say it's my mom's basement. That's where we're at. It's nice and cool down here. I got the fan going. Uh, just a beautiful, beautiful place. Beautiful, cool place to do a nice little show today on a Friday afternoon. It's like 100 degrees outside. I'm not sitting outside, and this is the first chance I had to record this, so we're doing it in mom's basement. We got 5 more Saturdays until Texas football, and that's also a beautiful thing. As beautiful as the weather is outside for some pool and lit, we got 5 Saturdays till football. Really, we got 4 Saturdays till football, but we got 5 Saturdays until Texas football, and that's really what I'm excited about on this Friday. Sarkin program finally get some good recruiting news. Not that there's been like a ton of bad recruiting news. Not that it's been a problem. I wouldn't say there's been a problem with recruiting, but it's no surprise that Oregon has taken a few recruits from the University of Texas, or really from Texas, period, and lots of recruits that Texas has been, sort of involved with for a while now. Uh, there was a stretch for about a week and a half where Oregon was just killing it, and Josiah Sharma out of California, 4-star defensive tackle, was one of those guys that I think Texas thought they had a pretty decent shot with. He picks Oregon. He just came to Texas for a official visit, and he has flipped his commitment to the University of Texas. So that's big news. Who knows how long it lasts? In today's day and age, I almost don't even get excited when kids commit. I guess I get excited when they commit, but I don't get excited until they sign. Super excited, and even then, you got to keep recruiting them every year. So no sure things in recruiting for anybody anymore. They also had Jonah Williams, a 5-star out of Texas, really outstanding baseball player, really outstanding football player. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that one. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. I don't even think Jonah Williams knows what's going to happen, but he's committing. I believe August 24th, I believe, sometime in August, late August, mid to late August. So the world will know, at least temporarily, where Jonah Williams is going to be attending. I think I think what most people think is that it's between Oregon, LSU, and Texas. Now, there could be some other schools in the mix. I don't know. And for a baseball guy, you got to think LSU and Texas have the edge. Now, which one has the edge out of those two? I have no idea. I think where again, where Oregon is even in the mix with this one is just the NIL money that they're chunking around. And I'm not hating. I'm not hating on the NIL money because Lord knows Texas has thrown some NIL money around. Uh, that's just the game today. So either step up, pony up the dough, or you kind of get left behind. And you kind of have to make decisions about who deserves the money, who doesn't deserve the money, all that kind of good stuff. They had Michael Terry the third on campus, big 5-star athlete out of Texas. Don't know what's going on with him, but nonetheless, good recruiting news. They had lots of really highly coveted athletes, football players on campus the last day, and some probably I don't know. There's a dead period coming up, I feel like, and I don't know when that is, but I think there's a dead period. So they at some point they got to go home, right? Anyway, but Michigan tickets are secured, folks. I've been watching tickets on SeatGeek for probably the last 2 months for this Texas and Michigan game. We've had hotel reservations, we've had flights, we've had rental cars, had all that stuff for a while. And finally, I found a deal I could not pass up on SeatGeek. I don't know if it's going to wind up being a good deal. These tickets usually drop, especially the closer you get to the game. As more inventory gets out there, the tickets will come down, which there's been a lot of tickets posted probably in the last week. Uh, so I don't know if it's going to wind up being a good deal, but as today, when I looked, they were half as much as any set of tickets in that section of Michigan says. So we're going to be like on the 20-yard line, 20, 25-yard line on the visitor side, about 60 rows up, 65 to be exact. And I kind of felt like that was I don't know if omen is the right word. I felt like that was a sign because I wore number 65 in high school. And I thought the price, 65, they're on the aisle. Man, you cannot beat that. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger. I'm gonna keep watching it and see. It's exactly what I paid to go to the Sugar Bowl. It's exactly what I paid to go see a game at Alabama last year. So if it comes down, oh, big deal. I am deathly afraid of having flight, hotel, rental car plans and no tickets. I don't know how I see people still to this day. And it's even worse now because there aren't no tickets in your hands anymore like there used to be. But I see people to this day that say, "Oh, just go on game day, man. Like 15 minutes before kickoff, you can find all these tickets." Which back in the day there was tickets in hand and you probably could do that and get in pretty cheap, right? I don't trust dudes with digital ticketing anymore. Anybody can make a ticket and send you a ticket that's not going to work when you try to scan into the stadium. So I'm out on that. Now, what I will do is kind of watch these tickets and see if they do come down and right about the time it comes down. I think every game's kind of different, though. Honestly, it's kind of its own little life. We'll just have to see. But I feel like today I got a really, really good deal on 2 tickets to be in the Big House on September 7th to watch Texas and Michigan battle it out for early season sort of dominance in college football. Defending national champs, semifinalists from last year in Texas. It'll be interesting. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a good time. I've always wanted to go to a game at the Big House. Finally getting to do it. I think we got a great show again today. We're going to continue our 2024 position preview. We're going to talk about the defensive backs, a position that, man, I think just to be frank, it just has to get better if Texas wants to move on and start playing for national championships. That defensive backfield's just got to be better. And we're going to talk about scholarship limits going up, man. Ross Dellinger tweeted out the other day, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, sometime this week. Ross Dellinger comes out and reports that scholarship limits are going up. We'll talk about that, what they are, what that means probably for the sports. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you'd just like to listen to podcasts, folks, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we are on iHeart. You can go to https colon // Horn Takes Podcast buzzsprout.com and get the podcast. Check it out. Let's do these DBs, folks. So the DB position, if you've watched Texas play the last 3 seasons, for sure, uh, it's a group that just hasn't been very good. Uh, haven't been terrible, I don't think. Not terrible. Man, they used to give up a ton of big plays, like huge plays through the air. They were terrible on third down. I mean, like teams were converting third downs on them, like third and longs at way too high of a percentage. And I think last year it got a little bit better. Texas had one of the better third down defenses in the country, but the passing defense still just not that great. And that's not all on the DBs, by the way. We fully recognize that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Uh, but to me, this DB group is one of the 2 position groups on the entire team that I think there are a lot of question marks about. I think uh, how they perform will kind of determine how this Texas season goes. They've only got one day one starter from 2023's team back on the depth chart at all. Brooks transferred, Ryan Watts out to the NFL, Darren Thompson transfer, Jalen Catalon transfer. Jahdae Barron's the guy. He's the only returning starter off of that 5 group. And Texas plays that star thing. They play the nickel a lot. So typically there's 5 defensive backs on the field for Texas, whereas some teams will only play 4. Here's the deal, though, folks. In 2023, and this is why I say there's a lot of question marks. So nobody's back from that defense last year, that defensive backfield, really. They finished 113th out of 130 teams in passing yards allowed. Uh, that's not very good. Is it terrible? You could say nobody could run on them, which is absolutely true. And so they gave up a lot of passing yards. You could say they were ahead of a lot of teams. And so they gave up a lot of passing yards, which I think is fair. That's a fair argument to the. If someone's going to say Texas's pass defense was bad last year, I think those two things are fair discussion points. I'm not. I think I fall kind of in between. I don't think those are fair enough discussion points to just erase what happened last year. But I also don't think they were just absolutely terrible. They were 39th in yards per completion, so that is pretty good. What that shows me is what that kind of tells me is they just saw a lot of reps. That defensive backfield saw a lot of passing plays, and honestly, the outside rush, the edge rush for Texas, it's gotten better every season, but it's still not very good. At least up until this point, right now before the 2024 season. So they didn't get a lot of help in that respect. Um, you look at why they haven't been that good. I think part of it's talent. I think part of it is fit. Like they may have some talented guys that maybe don't necessarily fit into the scheme, haven't fit into the scheme for PK what he wants to do defensively. I think a lot of it's continuity. I mean, we're looking at it. We're talking about it. We've already talked about it. 4 of the 5 guys are gone. So it's going to basically be a brand new, fresh, 100% different defensive backfield this year. And we've seen that over the first 2 years for the University of Texas that Steve Sarkisian's been here. We've seen that same type of deal, and continuity is a huge deal. We talked about it last week with the offensive line. Those guys have been playing together for a while, and when offensive lines get some experience, they get some years and some starts under their belts, and they've done it together. Those are the tough offensive lines. Those are the offensive lines that go out and kick a lot of ass because not only are they physically finally where they need to be because they've been having to do it for 2 or 3 years, they're mentally where they need to be. They're mentally on the same page, and it's tough, 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 tough to stop a group of guys like that. So it matters everywhere. And then I think again we talked about it. The pressure off the edge just has not been adequate in my opinion ever since Sark got to university. I mean, it wasn't adequate last year. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it's talent, some of it's injuries. What I think though is that this, and we'll talk about it more when we talk about the edges, but I think that's not going to be that much of a problem this year. Projected starters, and this is just my projected starters. I don't know if this is Coach PK and company's projected starters. I think this guy is for sure. Sophomore Malik Muhammad is going to start at cornerback. 14 appearances for this guy last year as a true freshman. 2 starts, 31 tackles, an interception, 4 pass breakups. He really came in as a freshman and just was not intimidated at all. He went right out on the field, started making plays, and he's pretty locked down. He's a pretty damn good cornerback. I'm really excited to see what he does throughout his career here at Texas. But I think he's your guy. I mean, I think to me he is your number one badass in that defensive backfield, and it'll be cool to see what kind of jump he makes from year 1 to year 2. Again, being in the program, being in the system, just developing him. So he was a kid last year, right? Like, I mean, a lot of 18-year-olds aren't ready to go play D1 football physically. He obviously was one of those, but he's just going to keep getting more physically mature and physically better as he stays at the University of Texas. I think the other cornerback is going to be senior Gavin Holmes, 14 appearances, 2 starts last year as a transfer out of Wake Forest. He had 16 tackles, 2 pass breakups. I think Texas needs more from him. Now he wasn't a starter last year, and he wasn't bad. Like I don't think he didn't cost Texas any games last year or anything crazy like that. But I think he's a kid with experience, a lot of experience there at Wake Forest. He's a guy that Texas needs to really step up and have a good year this year. I think you get him and Malik Muhammad playing well at those cornerback positions. That's gonna go a long way to improving the pass defense for this Texas team. Now safeties, there's probably a lot of debate here, but this is what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to see sophomore Derek Williams Jr. start. He had 13 appearances last year, 42 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass play. This guy has huge upside. This guy is. Uh, you talk about physically. He's probably your dog. He's probably your most physically talented guy in that secondary right now for the University of Texas, and he's got a year under his belt. And he's got nobody in front of him. He's going to be the guy, and I think he's going to step up and rise to the occasion, and be a really solid safety for this Texas team. And the other guy I think is senior Andrew Makuba. I'm probably saying that backward. He's an Austin. I'm probably saying it wrong. Mukuba. I'm not exactly sure. He's an Austin native, and a Clemson transfer. He had 35 appearances, 31 starts there at Clemson. He's the first freshman DB at Clemson to start since they allowed freshmen to start back in 1972. So that says a lot about it. It didn't take him long to get on the field. And so after the fifth game of the season, his freshman year, he's starting. 149 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, a sack. And this is a big number. 20 pass breakups in 3 seasons there. 2 fumble recoveries, an interception. I think again, you talk about experience, and you can get that now in the transfer portal, and that's what they did. They went out last year. They got Gavin Holmes. He contributed to last year's semifinal run. This year they go out and get Andrew Makuba, and so you think Sark and staff do a great job of this. They utilize the transfer portal to fill in those gaps where they don't have as much experience, or maybe they lost a guy to transfer or something like that. So I think he's a guy that's going to come in and really sort of shore up that back end for the University of Texas. And then at star, you got senior Jade Barron. Everybody knows him. 41 appearances, 23 starts. This guy has 3 non-offensive touchdowns. I believe he has a punt return for a touchdown. He's got a fumble recovery for a touchdown and an interception for a touchdown. And I think that puts him like it's in the top 10 all time at the University of Texas for non-offensive touchdowns, which is pretty good. And man, what I really love about Jade Barron is he is a menace at the line of scrimmage. When he gets up around the line of scrimmage, he blows up all those little short screen passes. He's strong in the run game. Um, that's where he's best, in my opinion. They tried him at corner. They tried him in a true safety position in spring ball. They even did it a little bit last season. You saw it a lot against Oklahoma State. I don't like him in that role at all. I don't like him at a quarterback position. Uh, quite frankly, man, Oklahoma State took advantage of him. Took advantage of the fact that he is not used to playing in space like that. And it's just it is what it is. It's not a bad thing. He's got a role on the team, and he does it very, very well. I say if it ain't fixed, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I could see them spinning Williams down to that star position and moving Barron back to a safety position. Uh, I th- I think I think he could do okay in like a free safety type role, but man to man coverage at that cornerback position, I do not like. I do not want to see it. I don't get to have my way, so I might get to see it. We might all get to see it. I will question it every time though. And again, I know I am not a highly paid man to from a football perspective, uh, but that doesn't mean I can't have an opinion, right? So I'm going to have a lot of opinions. I think the next 4, and I could be wrong on these two. At cornerback, I think you got Kobe Black. He's a 5-star, big kid, 6'2", 200 pounds. Recruiting services say he's a safety, and he says, "Nah, son, I am a cornerback." And I think that's where he's going to play at the University of Texas. He's athletic. He is big. I think he's going to see the field a lot this year. And then you got Junior Jacovian Cole. He's a transfer out of San Jose State University. He's had 24 appearances there, 38 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, a sack, a fumble recovery, 3 interceptions, and 10 pass breakups in 2023 alone. That's his stat line from 2023. Very impressive. They played some good teams. I know it's only San Jose State, but they played Oregon State. They played, I want to say they played USC. I think that's right. He really came on this year. Anyway, and he's got experience. So I think he's a guy that, from an experience perspective and an athleticism perspective, I think he's going to see the field. Safety, and this guy could be a starter. He started some games. He started a lot last year. Junior Michael Taft, a former walk-on. He had 14 appearances last season, 9 starts, 48 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 3 interceptions. He had interceptions in 3 straight games last year as conference play was kind of winding down. He's got a knack for finding the ball, obviously. Like I said, I would not be surprised to see him somehow manage to nail down a starting job. So, I mean, I think the other guys are more talented, but there's just something about Michael Taft. He knows where to be. He can get there. If there's a knock on Michael Taft, I'd say, maybe he gets beat physically sometimes, but a lot of good football players in college football. A lot of really good players are going to get beat physically sometimes. So I don't know. We'll just have to kind of see what happens there. And then another guy, and this is a guy that's really interesting to me, Jalen Gilbo. He had 8 appearances and 1 start in 2023. He registered 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 2 pass breakups. But he played in 8 games and had 3 starts as a true freshman before he got hurt. And he was a guy that you noticed out on the field. When he got hurt, that's when Jahdae Barron kind of stepped in and sort of you started to see his elevation and his progress at that position. Jalen Gilbo's a guy I feel like he's going to get on the field this year, whether he's playing safety or that star position. And I think he's going to make a huge impact. He was already doing it before he got hurt as a freshman. So I have high hopes for Jalen Gilbo. I think he's an outstanding player. And then we got some dark horses. Freshman Xavier Filsame, he's a 5-star. Big, fast kid, 6'1", 200. Oddly enough, recruiting services have him as a cornerback, but I think he's going to play safety at Texas. And he's one of those guys, you don't recruit these 5-stars to put them on the bench and never play them, right? So I think if he doesn't just have a lot of mental mess ups and things like that where the coaches just can't trust him, I think you're going to see that guy get on the field. Sophomore Jelani McDonald is an interesting guy as well. He was recruited as a linebacker, and he was a top 100 player in his recruiting class. But he was kind of on the smallish side. He weighs in at 6'2", 205 right now. I don't know what he was out of high school. Excuse me. But he's one of those project guys. And I think the project didn't go the way they thought it might go, where he could beef up. But he's a hell of an athlete. And I think he's a guy that could play around the line of scrimmage a lot, kind of like we're talking about. Jahdae Barron is really good at the line of scrimmage. This guy at 6'2", 205 and the speed and athleticism he has, I think he's a guy that could get up there and just cause some matchup problems for offenses. He's got really good length as well. I just imagine that guy lining up over the slot. He comes on a blitz, getting his hands up, just messing stuff up. Watch out for Jelani McDonald. He's a sophomore. I think he's a guy that he played a lot of special teams last year, so he's kind of one of those pay your due type of guys. See how it goes. Question mark: who steps up? We talked about it. There's not a lot of experience, or not a lot of starting experience, and not a lot of experience that's been there. There is quite a bit of experience if you really look at it. But what guys step up? There's not a lot of experience behind that experience. Let's put it that way. And who are those guys? Are they able to step up? You hear Sark talk about it, and I apologize for my throat, y'all. There's something in the air messing me up. But you always hear Sark talk about having guys that can come in and play, and they feel like they've got guys. Their ones and twos are almost the same guy. If you can get to the point where you got ones, twos, and threes that are the same guy, you're really dangerous as a football team. Who are those guys that can step up and be those good twos, those good threes for this Texas defensive backfield? And I think the other question is do we finally see this defensive backfield take a next step in this PK defense? They got to get right on the back end. It's been a huge problem for them for 3 seasons now, in my opinion. I think if you fix that, then this defense becomes very, very tough. Very, very tough to move the ball against. So are there some guys in this group that can step up and be big enough playmakers to make it hard on offense? I mean, there were times last year, folks, where even the worst passing offenses just seemed to be able to just methodically move the ball against Texas and then hit big plays over the top. Can't wait for the day, and it's going to happen, but I cannot wait for the day when this Texas pass defense is just almost impossible to throw the ball against. There's too much talent for it not to happen at some point. Grades. We've been grading all these groups. Man, right now, I'm not trying to be negative. I got to give this group a B minus. They're short on continuity. They're young, and they're young all throughout. Now there is some experience there, but it's not experience that's played together. And so, in a very short time, can this group sort of gel, get cohesive, all learn each other, kind of understand, trust each other to be where they're supposed to be, communicate. Communication is such a huge deal in the defensive backfield these days. Hurry up offenses, so these guys are rushing to just get in position, and then coaches are calling. Coaches are sending in defenses, and then the offense is changing plays, and the coaches sending in other defenses, and it is just a mess. And we saw last year, we saw a lot of big plays against Texas last year, just because I think communication just wasn't. They just didn't communicate well. To me, I mean, I think that's like number. I mean, you gotta have horses, right? You gotta have guys that can run. You gotta have guys that have good ball skills. You gotta have guys that are agile. All those things you have to have. But you've got all those things at a Division I football program. Can they communicate? That's the big thing for me. It'll be really interesting to see if Texas can get some more pressure off the edge this season. Because we talked earlier that's where we've been lacking that as well through these first 3 seasons with Coach Sark at the helm. Does that improve enough this year? Because if it does, then that's going to instantly improve this defensive backfield. I don't care how good you are. Deion Sanders can't cover somebody for 5 seconds. It just ain't going to happen. And we've seen some quarterbacks just be able to stand back there forever against Texas and find guys coming open. So that's a big key, and that's way outside of their lane, so to speak. That the defensive backs aren't rushing off the edge most of the time. So, but that will make them look a hell of a lot better right off the jump before anything happens. I'm excited to see how well this group performs this year. I think the talent's there. I think the scheme is there. The continuity, if they can build it over this summer, could be there. We'll just have to see. Ross Dellinger sends out a tweet, and I don't know if you can see that very well. It's on the screen. Ross Dellinger sends out a tweet saying the NCAA we're raising scholarship limits, and they are going to go into effect the 2025 to 2026 season. Any schools can now offer this many scholarships. For football, it's going to 110. To me, I don't really feel like that's that big of a deal. I don't I don't feel like anybody's going to be able to pull in 110 like blue chip type guys because we're already seeing at 85 guys that are second on the depth chart, first on the depth chart, transferring out. So for those guys, I don't think the scholarship to college really means anything. I think they already had enough scholarships at these schools to field some really ultra talented teams. To me, at the bigger programs, this almost kind of ends the walk on. I don't think you're going to see a lot of kids walk on to these big schools anymore because I don't think the schools can. I mean, I don't. I mean, you give 110 scholarships, and right now they're at 85, and they probably have anywhere from 115, 125 guys actually in the program if you count the walk-ons, maybe even less than that. I don't know if these big universities want to carry 150, 160 kids because now they're up to 110. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see. One thing I do think it does is I think it's going to provide some more opportunities for sort of those fringe kids that are D1, D2 slash type guys. You're going to start to see more of those guys get an opportunity at D1 if they want it. My gut tells me nothing's going to really change that much with this 110 scholarship increase from a macro perspective. I mean, I'm sure there will be instances where things change at certain schools or with certain players there's changes, but generally speaking, man, I just don't feel like I feel like they did something they didn't need to do. We'll see. Maybe I cannot see the forest for the trees, and we'll find out. But I'll tell you what this is big for. This is huge for baseball. Baseball historically 11.7 scholarships or 11.5 scholarships, something stupid that they could give out per year. So a baseball team could not give full scholarships to their entire team. Not even close to their entire team. If you think about it, they really couldn't give full scholarship to anybody. Now with this move, they bump up to 34 scholarships they can offer per season, which I don't know what the roster size is, but it's right around that. I feel so that's a huge deal. I mean, you're gonna be able as a baseball coach to now go talk to any kid in high school and say, I can offer you a full ride scholarship to the University of Texas, Stanford University, Texas A&M, LSU, whatever. I don't know if those are good schools. Stanford is, Texas is for sure. I think you combine like that with the NIL, and I think these colleges are going to start being able to convince high school players that are good enough to be drafted and will get drafted to go to college. I mean, think about it. Some of these college educations, you go to school for 4 years, you are easily sitting at $200,000. And that's just school. We're not talking like living expenses, food, board, books. We're just talking about the tuition is crazy high right now. 200K is not hard to reach at an undergrad at a big, sort of prestigious university. And now they're starting to offer guys hundreds of thousands in NIL money. Hell, Texas Tech just paid reportedly $1.2 million for a softball player that transferred out of Stanford. So there's big money getting chunked around. There's a huge sort of fringe benefit, like a restricted stock unit type of a deal with a $200,000 education that you don't have to pay for. And then I think, the stigma of you didn't start in a major league farm system, I think that's almost gone. And what's left of it is eroding away. Like you're starting to see lots of guys play 3-4 years in college and go into their organizations, their major league organizations, and move up very quickly to play and start and contribute in the big leagues. So I don't think you have this I mean, I think those three things. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with college baseball and what happens with a lot of these kids that are signing contracts today out of high school. How they sort of weigh all those things and add all those things. One of the things I tell people all the time, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, it's not just about salary. Like when you go to get a job or you go look at prospective jobs, it's not just about the salary. Different places have different uh, benefits, and those things make a huge difference in the amount of money you pay out of pocket. I mean, you can't just compare a job apples to apples on salary alone. You could have a job making 65 grand versus a job you could go to making 85 grand base salary, and you may come out financially in a better situation by taking that $65,000 job. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because you look at, okay, I could go sign a $2 million contract or maybe a $1.5 million contract. But now you talk about the NIL money I could make for 3 years. You talk about that education. Uh, you talk about the NIL money I could make, without even the school being involved, just me alone by myself. Man, it's going to start getting pretty competitive. It's going to be interesting to see if that puts a dent at all in the major league sort of farm system, and then how does Major League Baseball respond to that? How do these organizations respond if college baseball can sort of pull in that top talent and keep them in college for 3 years? You gotta if you get drafted and you don't go and you go to college, unless you go the JUCO route, you got to be there for 3 years before you are eligible to be drafted again. Something to think about, and I'm excited to see it, man. Because I'll tell you what, I love me some college baseball. I like Major League Baseball. I love college baseball. I think, man, I think the College World Series might be like the single greatest group of games, spectacle, whatever, in a week and a half's time that's ever been conceived and created and invented and done. What the hell is going on in Georgia? And it's not just Georgia. Really, I shouldn't even dime Georgia. In fact, let me go on record as saying this is not just Georgia. It absolutely is not Georgia. But Georgia's been in the news a lot lately. What is wrong with these kids? I did a TikTok. Actually, I did a show probably 2 years ago after all the Texas A&M weed locker room allegations were coming out. They went on the road somewhere, and apparently people were fighting with Jimbo Fisher and smoking weed or eating weed or hell, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I did a sort of a what is wrong with these damn kids? And I got to ask the question, why can't these kids act right? They're getting paid now. They're at the top of the world. I mean, like their earning potential is almost limitless. I mean, like it they have they have full control over that now. And you got these knuckleheads that still can't just go act right. And man, it just baffles my mind. I do not understand why you have all of that stuff. You have all of that at your fingertips, all that opportunity, and you can't just do like normal right shit. Like you just cannot not get in trouble all the time. It's a problem. And I don't think it's an isolated problem. I think more and more we're seeing it. And I don't know if it's because of the entitlement. I don't know if it's because, they've been treated a certain way their whole life. Surely some of it is, where some of these people come from, where some of these young men come from. I mean, not everybody gets to grow up in a great place. I 100% recognize that. Not everybody gets to grow up in a good household. I 100% recognize that. But everybody has control over their own behavior. And man, some of these kids just dumb. And we wish them all the best, man. But after a while, man, you just can't keep putting up with dumb. And there's a lot of dumb happening in college football, college sports in general right now. If you're listening, man, kids, quit hanging out with the wrong damn people. If you have the opportunity to go to the University of Georgia or Alabama or Texas or Florida, and name any damn school you want to name, focus on you and coming out of that place the best you can be. There's always going to be time to party. There's always going to be time to hang out with knuckleheads. There's always going to be time to chase women. Man. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, and I know, like, it doesn't matter what you could say. It'll never change. It makes me think about how frustrated I know my dad used to be with me. And now I've got a son that's 18, fixing to turn 19, and just how frustrated I get with him. But I was him. I was my son back a million years ago when I was that age. And that ain't never going to change. And it doesn't matter what dads say. It ain't never going to change. Ever. All right, you guys. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for joining us today. Join us next week. We'll continue the position preview. We're going to talk about the linebackers. Don't forget about our Texas football ticket giveaway. That is going to end in a week. 2 weeks from today. If I get to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, if I get to 2,000 followers on Twitter, and if I get to 2,000 followers, subscribers on Apple Podcasts, I'm going to give away 2 tickets to 5 different games next year at DKR. The details are on Twitter at Horn Takes. There's a pin post that gives you all the details, shows you what to do. If you need questions, you have questions, horntakespodcast@gmail.com. Again, find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe, give us a follow. Won't cost you guys a thing. We really appreciate the support. Email me at horntakespodcast, and I've had some guys do it, with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend. Get hooked.